Hi, I'm Stephen Head from Archery Supplies, and today we're here to look at setting up the Topoint Unison Recurve bow. Now, this recurve bow is new from Topoint Archery. It's machine riser. It comes in a whole bunch of great colors. This video is about setting it up and how you set it up for recurve archery. Now, to start off with, let's look at the tools that we need to get started. So we're going to start with some serving material. You can use normal serving material. I'm using BCY. BCY serving is quite cheap. We need some glue. We need a cigarette lighter, a pair of scissors, a T-square, Allen key set, a plunger button. Now I've got nocking points and a set of pliers, and you can see why I need these later. So let's get started. Now the first thing I do is I fit the plunger button to the bow. So I grab a plunger button and I screw it into the last hole on the riser. Now fitting the plunger button is really important. When you want to line up the string with the center of the bow, and the arrow wants to be basically straight in that line. Never on that side of the bow, always on that side of the bow. So either straight in line or slightly on this side to encourage the arrow to move away from the bow. So what I do is I grab the arrow I'm going to physically use. Now I'm going to physically shoot a VAP, Victory arrow. This is a 166 carbon shaft. So I grab that, I clip it onto the string, and I hold the arrow up against the plunger button. And I look at it from behind the bow, like so. I'm just going to move that in a little bit. And I think about there. So when I line it all up, there, the point should be slightly on this side of the string. So to me, that's pretty close. Now I lock it in place. So I grab the set of Allen keys I have here. Now this little button here moves, and on all plunger buttons it's exactly the same. And this one I've actually got it loose already. So I lock it in nice and tight, and then I just tighten off the little grub screw on the back, just there. So now when you go to a tournament or when you take down the bow, you can take off the plunger button and it's always going to be in the same spot. So that's tightened that up. So now I can remove this at any time I want, and it's going to be in the same spot. Okay, so we've done the plunger button. Now just on plunger button tuning, increasing the tension on the plunger button is equivalent of moving the plunger button out to that side. Making the plunger button softer is equivalent of moving the plunger button in towards the bow. So it's nice and simple. Now my advice is don't touch anything, especially if you're a beginner, because chances are your form or the arrows are going to need more tuning than the plunger button. Plunger button, generally you can change the tension and you can move it left to right. If I'm going to move it a little bit left or right to see if that improves the grouping. Right, the next thing I want to look at is the arrow rest. Now I'm just grabbing the Topoint arrow rest. It's pretty standard type of arrow rest. Just there and just there. It's a magnetic little thing. These things sell for about $10. Now what I want to do, you can see there, this is where the arrow sits, just that point there. I want to bend that up. So I want to have a slight little curve on the end. It's going to encourage the arrow to sit on the arrow rest. So I just grab the pair of nocking point pliers. Any pliers will do. I grab the other pair of pliers which I see here, and this is the only time you're going to use it, and I bend it up. Just like that. I'm going to zoom in. You can see I've just made that little curve just on the end, just there. That encourages the arrow to stay on the rest. Now, hopefully the backing plate will come off. Now we'll zoom up before I do that. You can see there's a little Allen key on the end. Use that to adjust how far out this sits on the bow, which is the next thing we're going to do. And seriously, getting the backing plate off is a skill. You need nails. With that, I just stick that on. Now, how do I know if I have that in the right place? I grab my arrow that I'm going to shoot with. I put it on the bow. You can see right now that little blade's not sticking out enough. I'm just going to... Now that's where you're probably best to loosen it off. But I'm just going to try moving it manually because it's generally not held on that tight. And you can see now it's perfectly aligned. Just there. So it's just sort of touching. I go there. Then you look at the back of your arrow. You want the arrow dead set in the middle of the plunger button. So let's go there. I want it dead in the middle of the plunger button. And that's looking pretty good. Now, if it was too low, you just move that piece of wire up. If it was too high, move that piece of wire down. Literally that simple. But to me, that's looking pretty good. And with that, I will just use the little Allen key that comes with it to make sure that's held in place tightly. Now with mine, I shot one of these arrow rests for a while, it did come loose. I am shooting the Decut Nova rest at the moment, and that hasn't moved. Right, so now we're up to fitting the nocking points. This is where I need a T-square. So the arrow rest is now on, we just need to fit nocking points. And we're basically ready to shoot. Now when you fit nocking points, that line, the big line at the bottom, is the base of the arrow. I always move up just one mark. So I put the arrow, the nocking pliers, the T-square, on where the bottom of the arrow runs, which is just like that. That's the base, just there where the bottom of the arrow runs. So I'll just move that back. Just there. So that's the base of the arrow. So if the arrow was sitting on, it would be sitting on just like that. They're just there. So we're finished with the Allen keys. We're finished with the pliers. Now you can use just normal brass nocking points. I'm going to actually do a tie-on nocking point so you can see how I do a tie-on. So we cut a bit of the cord. I've got a bit of hot melt stick. Any type of hot melt glue will work. In fact, this one's not the best. A softer one would be better. And all I'm doing is I'm rubbing the string through. You can see there I'm making the lines. I'm just rubbing the hot melt glue stick through the... So I'm trying to coat this bit of string with hot melt glue. I think I've got a fair bit on. Now it would be better if I used the softer one, but this is what I had. So now my first tie, so I just put the string on. My first tie is the tie you do with your shoelace, just a half a tie, like that. Nice simple tie, and then I pull the ends until they're nice and tight, and the base is touching that line there, the second line up. Right, so I've done the one tie. Now I do a tie on the back. I can actually remove this. Now we're going to go under, so I'm going to go another tie. But this time it's going to be moving down the arrow. Then we're going to do one on top. Then one on the bottom. And then one back on the top again. Now the numbers you do, the number of times is just up to you. I do about this many. Now some people finish with a double knot system, but for this case I'm just going to do that. Now we cut the little ends off here. So we cut that. So there's still a little bit of a tail left. There's a tail on both sides left off. Grab the cigarette lighter, and now we just burn the tails. Try not to burn the string. Now you can see those tails have been burnt off nicely. Now there's glue on this little red thing here. There's glue on there. So what we're going to do, you don't want the flame touching it, but you want to heat up the hot melt glue which is on that red stuff, because you want that glue to kind of melt itself in, and the only way it's going to sort of melt in is if it gets warm. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so we've done the one nocking point. Now I grab my arrow, I put the arrow above. Now we're going to repeat the same process with a nocking point above. So we cut the string, we rub the glue onto it, and any hot melt glue would be fine. And some people I know use instant glue for this purpose. Just instant glue doesn't set until you physically touch it sometimes. So I prefer to use hot melt. And right now you're feeling pretty good because you've almost put the bow together and you're almost ready to shoot. And that's what it's all about, shooting arrows. Right. So again, go above. Now, how close do you go with the nocking point? I always just leave a small gap, but not much of a gap, because there may be a little bit, you don't want these nocking points touching the arrow, because otherwise it could cause pinching. So I always have a little gap. So pull it nice and tight. Then on the back, and you're moving up the string. Like so. Then on the top. Like so. So now there's actually two knots. So there's one on the bottom, one on the top. We go on the back again. Now for doing D-loops, some people do this with D-loops. I'll just finish it off with one on the top. There's that, that's finished. Once again, same process, cut the ends. The ends and then burn them off, and you're ready to literally shoot. Burn the other one. So if you didn't have a bow square at home, you can just use a normal square. You can use your eyes to see if it's square. Now the advantage of using a brass nocking points versus material, brass ones are easy to fit and quicker and easier to adjust. I find these don't adjust that well. So that's that finished, and that's what it looks like just there. So with that, I've set up the Topoint Unison recurve bow, and I'm ready to go and have a shot. Let's see what this thing shoots like. Thanks for watching. So the more you shoot, the better you'll shoot, and enjoy it. There's no use beating yourself up if you're not shooting that well, because if you persist, you will get better. Thank you. Bye.